Guys, at midnight tonight, the federal government shuts down. Now, what I want to do is simply walk through exactly what this means, why it's happening, who's at risk, and more importantly, most importantly, how you should be thinking about your money during this shutdown. Now, a government shutdown, so we're all clear on the same page, a government shutdown happens when Congress fails to pass what they call annual funding bills, known as appropriations. Now, these appropriations are just simply laws which explain exactly how the money is going to be spent. Under what's called the Anti-Deficiency Act, federal agencies cannot legally spend money without an appropriations law or bill on the books. Now, that means that most non-essential government activities are going to stop. Some employees are going to be furloughed, which means sent home without pay until the government reopens. Others are going to be deemed accepted and are going to be required to keep working without pay, and all others are going to be exempt and will keep working with pay. Now, it's important to know this. Programs like Social Security and Medicare generally keep paying out, right? Because they're not funded through these annual appropriation bills. Those things are considered mandatory spending. Now, why this shutdown risk right now? Again, Congress is required every single year. Like, this is no surprise, right? Every single year, Congress is required to pass these 12 appropriation bills by the end of September 30th, right? The end of the federal government's fiscal year. Or Congress is required to pass what's called a continuing resolution. Now, what is a continuing resolution? They call it a CR. It's just a temporary measure that keeps the government funded at its current funding levels and keeps the government open and operating for several weeks to several months until the appropriation bills can be passed by Congress. Now, as of today, right now, this evening, not a single one of those 12 fiscal year 2026 appropriation bills have been enacted into law, right? Now, a House-passed short-term funding bill failed in the Senate about a week and a half ago. Now, that left us pretty much with no stopgap in place, and that's why we end up where we are right now. Now, this standoff that we're watching here is really about more than money, guys. It's about policy. Democrats want to tie funding to preserving the Affordable Care Act subsidies, and Democrats want to tie funding into Medicaid protections. Now, on the other side of the aisle, Republicans are saying, let's pass a clean funding bill first and deal with policy later. Republicans are saying, let's pass this CR. You passed a CR a bunch of times during Biden's administration. Why can't we pass a CR now? That's what Republicans are saying. Now, some bills have made partial progress. For example, the Senate passed a package that bundled military construction, agriculture, and the legislative branch appropriation bills in it. The House actually passed a military construction back in June appropriation bill and a defense bill back in July, right? But here's the key. None of those are enacted into law right now on September 30th. So they don't keep the government open. The government has a great chance of shutting down in just a few hours. Now, which agencies don't have appropriation bills passed? Those 12 agencies. You got the Department of Agriculture, you got Commerce, you got Energy and Water, you got Financial Services and General Government, you got Homeland Security, Labor, Department of Labor, you got Legislative Branch, you got Military Construction, you got State and Foreign Operations, and Transportation, right? The bottom line is this: as of right now, as we speak, none of these are enacted. That means most of these agencies are affected if this shutdown goes forward in just a few hours. Some activities that have multi-year or mandatory funding are going to continue, right? But everything else is going to be on hold, guys. What actually closes and what stays open, so we're clear. Here's how it plays out. The CBO, or the Congressional Budget Office, estimates that around 750,000 federal employees could be furloughed each day that a shutdown continues. Now, there's others, again, that are going to be still working but not getting paid. And then you have some that are going to be exempt and will keep working with pay because they're not funded by these appropriation bills that are year over year money. The law does not guarantee back pay, by the way, once this shutdown ends. However, back pay is typically given. But we also heard Trump warning to permanently fire many employees if the shutdown persists. Now, at the Health and Human Services, HHS, about 41% of their staff are going to be furloughed. That means Research, communications, and many of the services that they offer at the Health and Human Services are going to be paused. Now, the IRS, for example, is different this time around thanks to a multi-year funding from the Inflation Reduction Act. The IRS expects to keep normal operations going, right? In travel and aviation, TSA and air traffic controllers, they're probably going to keep working unpaid. But things like training and hiring and certifications, all those things are probably going to pause. Now, that means delays if you're traveling, longer lines, slower processes. Also, key economic data that is normally released, that's likely to be halted as well, such as like the monthly jobs report. We won't be seeing that if this shutdown persists. Now, for students, Pell Grants, direct loans continue, and borrowers are going to have to keep making their payments unless they have some type of forbearance, right? And services that keep running, again, Social Security is going to continue. Medicare is going to continue. The post office is going to continue because, again, all of those are considered either mandatory or they have an alternative funding source that is not a part of these 12 appropriation bills that must be passed by the end of tonight. Now, the people that are going to be hurt the most, obviously, it's going to be those furloughed federal workers. If that's you, let me know in the comments below, right? They're the ones that's going to be hurt the most because they're going to be facing some cash flow issues in your own personal household. Now, federal contractors, if you have a federal contract, you're going to see some slowdowns, maybe some stop work orders as well. And you might see some payments and new contracts being delayed. Now, travelers and aviation employees who deal with slower processes and certification backlogs, you'll see a hit too. Not to mention your small businesses, especially the small businesses that are waiting on SBA loans, right? Which typically freeze during a shutdown. Now, also families that may be relying on nutrition benefits, right? SNAP has funding to cover October, but a prolonged government shutdown could strain the SNAP system. And also WIC, right? It's going to be especially vulnerable if this government shutdown drags on. We'll see. Now, here's some smart things that you should be thinking about. If you're a federal worker, obviously, you want to check whether you're accepted, exempt, or you're going to be furloughed. Your agency has contingency plans, and every federal agency is probably tonight sending out emails to you. So you ought to be getting that information pretty quick if you haven't already got it. If you are furloughed, you can apply for unemployment in your particular state. Some states are going to require repayment later if you receive back pay. Keep that in mind. But call your bank or your credit union now. Sometimes you have regulators who are urging financial institutions to offer some type of hardship programs if you are a federal government employee and you're going to be furloughed. If you're a contractor or a small business owner, expect federal contracts and loan approvals to stall, right? Tighten your cash flow, right? Bigger buffer, just in case this thing drags on. We just don't know. If you're traveling, allow more time at airports, right? Think about trip delay coverage in your travel insurance if you got it, if you use it, right? If you rely on benefits like SNAP, SNAP should come in October. But beyond that, if this thing drags on, it depends, right? WIC recipients should stay in contact with local offices to keep those appointments and make sure those benefits are flowing too. Listen, for everybody, aim to keep at least 1 to 2 months of essential expenses at your beck and call when you need it. If money's tight, prioritize the essentials. Obviously, I know I'm preaching to the choir, right? But housing, rent, mortgage, utilities, food, transportation, that's really important. If you think that you're not going to get a paycheck for a while, talk to your lenders and don't panic sell your investments and things like that, right? Shutdowns have historically had limited impact on markets, the stock market and all that good stuff. Now, unless they tend to drag out for 3 or 4 weeks, which is pretty rare. For context, guys, the 2018-2019 shutdown permanently shaved about $3 billion off the GDP. But most losses were later recovered, back pay and so forth. Now, full disclosure, I've been working for the federal government for 23 years, and I've seen shutdowns before. This one feels a little different, right? So stay tuned. From here, a short-term resolution, even just for a week or two, would stop the shutdown. So let's keep our eyes open for that. Without it, furloughs are going to begin at 12:01 right after midnight tonight, October 1st. And the pain is going to grow as the days go on and on. Agencies will post updates through OPM and on their websites and via email. But keep an eye on markets and economic data. If this thing tends to last, You got major releases like jobs and CPI numbers and all that stuff is going to be delayed, right? So to be clear, appropriation bills are the 12 annual laws that fund discretionary programs throughout the federal government. A continuing resolution could change it all. A CR. It's just a temporary funding that keeps funding at the current levels, but it could avert a shutdown, or it could be tomorrow or the next day that they come up with a CR that they can agree on, and that keeps the government running. So check your agency's plan tonight if you work for the federal government, and check OPM's website as well. If you're furloughed, remember, you can apply for unemployment. Call your lenders. If you're traveling, plan for longer airport waits if this thing actually occurs in a few hours. If you're on SNAP or WIC, watch the official updates. And if you're investing, stay diversified. Don't panic sell. Avoid all the emotional moves that you're going to see online and all that good stuff, right? 2 more quick notes, guys. The IRS expects to keep operating as normal, and the Labor Department says major economic data releases will pause during the shutdown. So some of those things we talk about on a weekly basis, we may not see. So here's the deal. Bottom line, a shutdown isn't just politics. It trickles over into paychecks, benefits, small businesses, household budgets, right? So you got to stay alert, protect your money, and keep your plan tight. Do me a favor, guys. Drop me a comment if you're affected directly by this shutdown. I want to hear your story. This shutdown is proof that we have to take control of our own money, right? That's why tomorrow, October 1st, I'm opening my brand new course, 4 Steps to Maximize Your Money. For a limited time, VIP early sign up just for 3 days only gets you a steep discount on the course. If you've been watching my videos and waiting for the right time, this is the right time. The link is below in the description box. Lock in your VIP spot right now and let's build wealth with intention. The best person who's going to take care of the old you is the young you. Guys, take good care of yourself and take care of other people. Until the next video, peace.